Hello viewers, you are still watching the special live independence broadcast of Trust TV, and I hope that you have enjoyed it so far. Happy Independence Day, Nigeria. And I'm your host, Hamza Idris. On this segment, we discuss politics and youth inclusion. Let's start with politics, of course. In this report, Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman discovers that political stability and sustained democratic culture in Nigeria may be lacking. Reasons being an absence of strong democratic institutions, norms, and values. Political analyst who spoke to Shafiu on the occasion of Nigeria's 63 independence anniversary attributed the slow pace of attaining robust political culture and self-centered leadership, inactive and docile citizenry in the country. Take a look.
Political culture is considered as the totality of the norms, behavior and values of both the political class and citizens as a measure for the resilience of a given system or society. Analysts say 109 years since the amalgamation of the southern and northern protectorates that gave birth to Nigeria, in addition to 24 years of uninterrupted democracy, the country is still struggling to attain a robust and enduring political culture.
Politicians look at the next election, statesmen look at the next generation. So the political class are looking at how to survive the murky water of politics, how to feather their own nest, what I will call personal aggrandizement. So they do everything to ensure their own political survival.
Institutions are not allowed to function properly. Institutions are not properly equipped. And again, there is absence of leadership. There is lack of mobilization of the people to even understand what government stands for.
While the political class is accused of manipulating the institutions to achieve parochial and inordinate objectives, the citizens are said to be indifferent to the issues of governance, accountability, and active political engagement.
They still, for instance, allow themselves to be divided. Many of them are not interested in exercising their franchise. Most of them do not even believe in politics. They do not believe in democracy. And even where they do believe, they still attempt to cut corners. They don't have problem with election misconduct, rigging, thuggery, hooliganism. They hardly hold leaders to account.
The summary of that is there is no political way to even get people to know about their political culture, about democratic culture. And unfortunately too, our Independence Day celebration has not been shaped in a way that will imbue this culture in the citizen.
Though the country's political culture is still evolving, analysts, however, believe.
Viewers, we interrupt that conversation to bring in the live statement and briefing by Kano State Governor. Have a look.
Nasiru Ado Bayero, Gaya, Dr. Aliyu Ibrahim Abdul Qadir, and that of Rano, Ambassador Kabir Ibrahim Idwa, the Commissioner of Police, Director SS, Brigade Commander and other heads of security agencies here present, Honorable Commissioners and Special Advisors, State Party Chairman, of course, of the NNPP, other state parties chairmen here present, chairman of the 44 local governments here present, heads of government parastatals and agencies, members of the diplomatic corps, our respected ulamas, businessmen, other civil servants, security personnel here, of course, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Today, 1st of October 2023, we are celebrating the independence of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. To my beloved good people of Kano State, on this day, 63 years ago, our heroes of the independence struggle brought joy and happiness to all Nigerians. It was the day when we achieved independence from the colonial rule of Great Britain. Let me therefore begin by congratulating our compatriots, countrymen and women, for the independence of our country, but especially for attaining 63 years of nationhood. What we celebrate today is the fact that we are a sovereign nation, experimental liberal democracy. We are celebrating our identity as Nigerians, sharing common citizenship, having equal opportunities, enjoying equal rights and responsibilities, and pursuing the same dream of building a great and prosperous nation. Independence Day is a period to reconnect with our history, reflect on our past, assess our present, and make plans and projections for our future. In looking at the past, it is appropriate to pay tribute to the great nationalist and patriotic freedom fighters who sacrificed everything to ensure the freedom of our people and our nation. It is also a thing of joy and inspiration to remind our youths that all the major contributors to Nigeria's independence struggled, played their roles when they were young men and women like you. On occasion like this, we must salute the resilience, intelligence, and doggedness of the likes of late Malam Aminu Kano, late Sir Abubakar Tabawa Balewa, late Malam Saadu Zungur, late Yusuf Maitama Sule, late Chief Anthony Nahoro, and of course late Madam Margaret Ekfo. We must pay tribute to the commitment, patriotism, and the foresight of the likes of late Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Sardauna of Sokoto, late Alhaji Sulagaya, late Herbert Macaulay, late Dr. Namdi Azikwe, late Chief Obafemi Awolowo, late Hajia Gambo Sawaba, late Madam Pumilayo Ransom Kuti, late Jaja of Opobo, and of course late Sir Kashim Ibrahim of blessed memory. These are the men and women who led the struggle that culminated into the declaration of the independence of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 63 years ago. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our country today, 63 years after independence, has recorded some progress, but we ought to have done much better. Our founding fathers have laid the foundation for a nation on the principles of fairness, equity, justice, and progress. These are the fulcrum upon which any progressive and prosperous society is built. At this moment of reflection, we must recognize and salute the efforts of all our previous leaders that contributed their quota in keeping our country united and catalyzing our development to where we are today. It's only rational to also recognize that arising from some policies, choices of some of our first leaders, our development and growth ought to have gone beyond where we are today. Our cohesion and unity ought to have been stronger than what it is today. Our security and stability ought to have been better than what it is today. The challenges of unemployment and youth restiveness must be given more attention. The challenges of insecurity and poverty must be attended to with sincerity. The challenges bedeviling education, provisioning, and healthcare services must be genuinely attended to, and the challenges of hunger and malnutrition must be tackled compassionately. In Kano State, ladies and gentlemen, we are determined to look into the future with hope, belief in careful plans, devoid of the encumbrances of the burden of the past. We are working deliberately to break away from the cycle of despair, poverty, insecurity, injustices, and youth restiveness, all of which are products of bad leadership. Fellow compatriots, in the last 4 months since our assumption of office, our administration have taken bold steps in ensuring security of lives and properties of innocent citizens. The cases of pawn snatching and street crimes have become almost a history in our dear state. We have taken bold steps against the sale and consumption of illicit drugs to save our youths from becoming victims of the menace. Believing that preventive measures are not enough to stop this disease, we have reopened all our 26 institutes for skills acquisition for the purposes of equipping our teeming youths with soft and hard skills, as well as empowering them with startup capital to start small, medium enterprises and contribute to the development of our state and our dear nation, Nigeria. We have also taken decisive steps to overhaul education and healthcare sectors. Schools are being renovated in batches. We are providing school-free uniforms, school bags and shoes at pilot stage. We are providing free exercise books and textbooks to primary and junior secondary school pupils. And of course, arrangements have reached advanced stage in providing 1 free meal to primary school pupils. We are building new schools across the 44 local government councils in our quest to mop out of school children roaming our streets, to support girl child education and encourage parents to send their daughters to school. We are issuing stipend of 20,000 naira to over 45,000 girls child as pilot scheme in collaboration with Agile of the World Bank. We are also reintroducing the girl child school buses to start transporting them to and from schools. To support our high-level manpower development.
That was Governor Kabir Yusuf of Kano State briefing citizens on the occasion of Nigeria's 63 independence anniversary. Of course, he mentioned the impediment of reconnecting with our history, remembering our fallen heroes, reminding our youth of their roles in nation building, and of course, the role and sacrifices of our founding fathers. And in the studio with me is Emmanuel Njoku. He is the head of Connected Development Code, and also we have in the studio Mukhtar Suleiman. He's a youth advocate and a writer to discuss rule of law, issues relating to youths, and all that as we mark Nigeria's 63 independence anniversary. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Yes, gentlemen. Maybe I should start with you, Emmanuel. Maybe you should say a word or two on what Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf reminded us, reconnecting with our history, because it's like we lost Nigeria's history. The youths have been disconnected. Let me take a word from your organization. Yes.
Well, first of all, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that today is our 63rd independence. As a person, I'm excited because sometimes I wonder if any person loves Nigeria as much as I do, because this is the only country we have, and I have only one passport, the Nigerian passport. So yes, I'm excited to be here and trying to reconnect to what the governor said and looking at the nation in itself. You know, when we say reconnecting the youth to the history, let's first look at the country, nation, and our motto as a country. Our motto is unity and faith, peace and progress. First of all, can we relate to that as citizens of this country? When you talk about faith in the country, do we really still, as young people, have faith in the country? With all the missed opportunities that we've witnessed, the last of it being the opportunity that INEC had in the last election to make more young people to participate, especially with the level of interest and awareness that they had before the election. Do we still really have faith in a country where every young person's dream is to jackpot, to leave the country? That is the dream of every young person. Do we still have faith? Young people actually are the ones that you see online mostly. When the president was giving his speech, I joined it late. But at the time I wanted to join it because I was somewhere early that morning, I had to use YouTube. And I could see that only just about 2,500 persons were watching it on YouTube.
Just 2,500.
And at that same time, that was actually Channels TV YouTube. But at that same time, there's this popular church, you know, this popular pastor that does this morning program every day. And, you know, so I also checked. And at that time, I saw that there were over 25,000 people that were watching this program. So do we still really have faith in this country? And you talk about unity. Can we really say that we are as united as the intentions of the people that found this nation is? Do we really have peace? Are we really making progress at this time where people are suffering? Most Nigerians are finding it so difficult to get by. Most Nigerians, given the exchange rate right now, live in a month under less than just about $25 to $30 in a month. And the average person has at least 3 to 4 dependents. Are we really making progress? When you look at all of these things, it is very disturbing for me. It is very heartbreaking for me. But we'll continue, personally, we'll continue to have faith and we'll continue to work hard, continue to do our own bit to see that in the nearest future we Well, we'll say with the president, the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu calls this a renewed hope. Yeah, it's English, but then it's renewed hope because meaning that we all lost hope under the political party which he still came into. Now he's talking about renewed hope. We have no choice than to continue to hope and work and believe that as a nation we will find or be on a path to progress.
Okay, Mukhtar, you had Emmanuel. Are youths really connected with Nigeria? In the earlier report we showed where Shepiu Suleiman spoke with, Dr. Kari and others, yes, they said we have lost our connection with history, and Nigeria is over 100 years.
Yes.
Of course, we are celebrating independence at 63, but Nigeria is over 100. An amalgamation of southern and northern protectorate. What is there for the youths? You are one of them.
I think it's largely, the reason why we are largely disconnected, like Emmanuel has actually pointed out earlier, is because the government at every turn, in a way to actually ensure that we can begin to trust the system, has actually fallen short significantly. But then again, when you say the history of Nigeria, what really is the history of Nigeria? Is it the history of that predates independence itself, or is it post-independence? After independence, that's a deep question we need to ask ourselves. Because if you go down the line of history and then you begin to see from 1960 when our founding fathers, in quotes, decided it was high time the British colonial masters leave the country, what was the goal? What was the aim? One thing you get to find collectively, although it's salient, is that they just wanted the British masters to go. But there was no goal for what Nigeria should become eventually. And then because of that, we're finding it really difficult for us to fit into whatever it is the Nigerian dream is supposed to actually be. It keeps shifting goalposts every single time with every generation. But then again, the idea of culture for me personally is that culture should be the total way of life of a people over a given certain period of time. And now in this age and time where we find ourselves right now, we're in an age of facts, and science, artificial intelligence is becoming more prevalent. So it's the things that we see that we tend to believe more than the things that are told to us. So irrespective of whether, yes, we know that the law is the law, and eyewitness reports cannot hold sway in the courts, but we still have to ensure that what our eyes can actually still see still takes predominant sway. So you see, a typical example would be the last general elections that just happened in 2023. Despite the turnout that we all saw the turnout that came out for that election. We saw the political involvement of the youth. We saw that this was the one time that there was less political apathy based on engagement. You look at your neighbor tell you they are going to go and vote. They were tired. Everybody wanted to go and vote. It's almost like 2015 all over again. But the problem was, when the data came out, it's the least turnout we've ever had since the history of our democracy for the past 24 years. So it's a very big question we need to ask ourselves. What are the structures we're putting in place to ensure that there's trust in the system for people to actually follow? If we can actually link that up effectively, then it becomes very easy for trust to be built between the Nigerian youth today and actually the history of Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Yes, Emmanuel, please come in here. You made mention that very few people, even though it was just one YouTube channel, there are many others. But the truth is, Nigerians don't really trust their leaders. Ordinarily, the country should stand still during the presidential
speech.
Yeah. But it's like every other person was just going about their normal life. Why is it so? Is it that leaders don't really appeal to the citizens, or the citizens don't really trust what they say, going by about 6 key points that President Tinubu enumerated during his speech?
So, this thing comes from the point of, so I always say this, I say that Nigerians still love Nigeria. But when you look at the situations and everything around you, it looks as if Nigeria doesn't really love Nigerians. So when you travel abroad and you see Nigerians, they are very proud being associating and identifying themselves as Nigerians. I don't know if you've ever been to National Stadium to watch a Nigerian match, or even during any tournament, or even when Adesanya, the UFC champion, or when our Nigerians playing in Premier League are playing football, you see the way Nigerians identify with. But over time and over the years, these citizens have lost trust in the government. And you ask, why should Nigerians really take their time, sit down and watch this speech, when we've had these speeches over and over and over since 1999, this Fourth Republic till date? And most times they don't follow through these things to latter. So today, Mr. President said that they're going to be adding 25,000 naira to low-grade workers in Nigeria. That's very vague and very...
This is the first time I heard of this. You heard it before? Low-grade worker?
Yeah, that's what he said, low-grade worker.
No, I mean, is it in our lexicon?
So what data are they going to use? So who is a low-grade worker? Is it the people, the artisans, or are they talking about just the very few people in... So you ask, what's the population of people in civil service?
First.
Talk more of people that are low grade. Because in my thinking, I was like, maybe low grade means people that are level 7 and below, because I want to believe level 8 and above is executive. So what's even the population of people that are in civil service? Talk more of just the low grade, which is the very few persons in civil service. So all of these conversations today now, we've been talking about the CNG, and we're aware that the NLC and TUC, they've called for strike from tomorrow, Todd. Now, the president talked about the CNG engines, and this conversation has been going on. And if you listen, he said that soon they will be rolling in. All these things are vague. So
promises.
Yes, they are vague, So even if his intention may be genuine, but they are vague. So they must come out and put clarity and put timelines to this thing, so people can actually trust and believe. So this is the reason I believe most times most Nigerians do not really bother so much to watch some of these speeches, mostly written by their aides. So most times it's not even really coming from the heart of the president, So, and when you look at the speech today, when I was watching President Tinubu today speak, he wasn't really radiating. He looked a bit tired. He looked a bit.
But remember, he came back last night.
He came back last night. He looked a bit tired and a bit stressed, and that wasn't also very encouraging. I mean, this is a president who really wanted to be the president of Nigeria. And me, somehow, when I look back in all that has happened, when Tinubu became the president, I looked at it and I was like, okay, for once, this is the first time in Nigeria we're going to have a proper politician who typically understands politics and governance to be the president. 1999, President Olusegun Obasanjo was a military consensus arrangement. Yar'Adua was the making of President Obasanjo. Goodluck Jonathan was a victim of, he was a circumstantial president. Buhari was politicians coming together to say, let's bring this person to be able to take out the PDP from power. This is the first time we're having the president. And that popular phrase, Emiloko, that he said. So this is his first independence speech since he became president. I was expecting some sort of energy. I was expecting some sort of reassurance, but it was still just, this cold speech. And probably that explains why I saw on the YouTube just about 2,500 persons. And it was towards the end of the speech. So probably people that started it earlier lost interest and probably logged on to something else, But one thing I will always tell Nigerians is, frankly, there's nowhere like Nigeria. I've by virtue of my work, traveled around, and I've met Nigerians living in other countries abroad. And trust me, they all wish that Nigeria will get better so that they can all come back to this Nigeria. So for me, I always ask Nigerians, every Nigerian, why you sit down there and blame the government? You as a Nigerian, what role are you playing to also show patriotism and also to serve this nation? When there are people out there who think they are not in civil service, but you are in business, and you are out there, you are selling fake food, baby food products to your fellow countryman, and you are talking about the government when you are worse than that government, when you as a person, you can't even obey the simple traffic laws of this nation. But why you want to blame the citizens? I also blame the government, and that's why when I say Nigeria doesn't really love Nigerians, because Nigeria, when I talk about institutions that make Nigeria Nigeria, and these are institutions that are supposed to ensure that there is rule of law, that are supposed to ensure, like for instance, talk about the Nigerian police, and all we did in the NSAS, So these are institutions that are supposed to protect us. The Standard Organization of Nigeria, talking about people that are selling fake baby food. The SON that is supposed to ensure compliance. All these things are not working. And for that reason, it makes it really difficult, even being a Nigerian or really wanting to love Nigeria as a Nigerian.
Yes, Mukhtar, absence of strong democratic institutions. He has mentioned some, because many Nigerians believe that it's only executive, legislature, and judiciary that are democratic institutions. But you can see he mentions SAN, right?
SON.
SON. That is the agency responsible of ensuring
quality
that things,
control.
Yeah, they control quality and all that. But as far as legislature is concerned, can we say we are there?
Not really. I think that's the one place that we've actually fallen so short and so far off, because the laws that these legislatures make actually set the bedrock for how most of these agencies operate. So you see how the government structure is supposed to work in terms of the legislatures make the law, the judiciary interprets the law, and then the executive arm executes the law. So from the bedrock for me is how it starts from that point of legislation. So what are the ideologies that informs how the legislatures make their laws? That's actually something we actually need to also look into. We are largely a cultural society. So the idea that's peddled by some people anyway, that we should do away with culture in how we address our issues in this country, because we're supposed to be a secular state, does not make any sense to me, because you cannot fit round, sorry, how do they call it? Square pegs in square holes. It doesn't make sense. I've always made this analogy saying that there are potholes everywhere in the world. Anywhere you go to, there's always a pothole. But the question is, what is the cause of that pothole in that country, and how does it differ from what causes your own pothole in your country? You go to somewhere like Canada, for example, you could tell that maybe the road froze up, and then a big trailer went on top of climbed the road, and then it broke, and then when the sun came up, the water expanded and then it broke. You could actually tell that there was a reason why there's a pothole there. Is that the same reason why we get potholes in Nigeria? It's two different things. So we cannot keep importing solutions into this country. And that's sort of what most of our legislative arms have actually been doing. We've seen that in countless times where in the past you see that they went to copy the policy of another country and just came and dumped it on us. And that's something we actually need to review as a country, how the ideologies that actually guide how our legislative arm makes laws. And also, I don't know how it's going to be, what will be that unifying factor? Because for the longest time, and if you go back to 1960, when the likes of Nnamdi Azikiwe, Awo, and Sir Ahmadu Bello were trying to become Premier of the North and presidents and all of that during the very first era, you could tell that since that time we've been playing ethnic politics, and we need to change it. Because if you look at the whole books, the stories and everything that happened, that ensued at that point in time, everybody went back to their own strongholds and campaigned. So there's no unifying factor for us. So we actually need to also work on that. So because these three arms of government needs to actually work together. The Standard Organization of Nigeria that he mentioned, and other agencies.
You have NAFDAC,
yeah,
you have NDLEA.
They all fall under the executive arm. And whatever laws that these legislators make are how they're going to operate, whether you like it, whether you don't like it, if you like, get angry. I'll give you another example of where we've actually fallen so far off. Just some few days ago, I saw, yesterday or the day before yesterday, I saw a report of a girl who was refused treatment. She was pushed out of a vehicle and she was taken to Maitama General. I'm not scared of mentioning it now because it's popular anyway. And she was taken to Maitama General and she was refused treatment at Maitama General.
Because no police report.
Because there was no police report. Now, this reminded me of something that happened when I was working for Delta Broadcasting Service in Warri back in 2015. Where a girl was shot, the same similar story, taken to a hospital, and she was also refused treatment. But I was so angry about it, so I posted something on my status yesterday. I said, if the Hippocratic oath that the doctors take should actually mean something, or is it a hypocritical oath? So the doctors I have in my contact actually came for me, but then they schooled me on something. Some of them shared the law that governs health practice, where it said that if they are not careful, they open themselves to a lot of litigation from hungry lawyers and parents who are not considerate. So when you go ahead and do the treatment, the first question the police will ask you is, why didn't you go for the police report first? But it doesn't make sense because the law itself is counterintuitive. If I'm shot, I'm not thinking of a police report first. I'm going straight to a hospital. So the question now remains, how can we ensure policy advocacy to change that particular aspect of the law? So if I come to the hospital with a bullet wound, should I be treated? And then the police should be called while I'm being treated. That makes more sense.
Yes, exactly.
But as opposed to saying with with a hole in my body and I'm leaking blood, I should go to the hospital first. I should go to the police station first, go suffer through questioning before coming up with a statement, then before going to the hospital. So I think the legislative arm of the government needs to do a complete overhaul in terms of the ideas that actually drive how laws are made, because unless we begin to do things that shows that Nigeria loves Nigerians, it's going to be very difficult for Nigerians to work for Nigeria.
Emmanuel, quite a number of youths in the National Assembly now. Even in the Senate, you have some young people below 40, you know, as senators. Yes, and of course we are going to speak to some of the lawmakers later in the program. But do youths still have excuses with some of them now in the National Assembly?
Well, we can do better. We can have more youths participate in our elections. We can have more passionate, qualified youths participate in our election. And that is why what happened in the last election was really heartbreaking for me, as regards just that.
Despite the numerical strength of the youth.
That's what I'm saying. As regards that transmission of polling unit results at the presidential election on 25th February. You know, it created a lot of reasons for young people to say, we said it, we can't trust the system. But when you look back, like in some states, I'm aware that in a couple of states in Nigeria, they have first-time parliamentarians that have become speakers. Reason being that a lot of young people who ran for office won because of the introductions and the electoral reforms I was saw in that part. But young people will have more interest to contest more and do better if we take from the lessons of these 2023 general elections and influence and inform the reforms in our 20. So one of the biggest challenge in running for office, as you are aware, is the cost. Not just the cost of running for office, but the post-election cost, where you have to go through courts. From the tribunal, you come to the high court, you go to the appeal court. Is how many young people can actually afford all of that cost? And which is why we keep saying that after all this whole court process must have finished, we have to go back to the drawing table and look at the electoral laws again. First of all, we must ensure we strike out all those ambiguities. Before the elections, most Nigerians actually thought that if results are not transmitted electronically, that it cannot be said to be a valid election. But when we've looked at the Electoral Act clearly, and it says clearly in section 62 or so that INEC shall transmit as they deem fit. But the impression the chairman gave, and what he says there is not even law, the impression the INEC chairman gave to everyone is that we must do this because this is what the law says. So my point is, after the whole court processes, to encourage young people to participate, we must go back to the Electoral Act. All the ambiguities, for instance, around transmission of results, we must tidy it up. But then on issues around appointments of both the INEC chairman and the resident electoral commissioners and the national commissioners, we must go back to that Justice Uwe's committee report where he says that both the INEC chairman, the national commissioners, and resident electoral commissioners shall apply. So it doesn't just become political patronage. And another part of that Justice Uwe's commission speaks to challenge these whole issues around our court processes, people going to court after elections. I don't know how many cases they say have in court right now. It's constituting nuisance in our judiciary. Now, the Justice Uwe's commission says that the burden of proof of if an election was credible or not should not be on me that contested for office, but should be on INEC. Because INEC is the one that conducts an election. INEC has all the data around the election. So you see what has happened in many cases. They give people that run for office 21 days to gather all the data they need to present in a court within 21 days. A lot of frustrations comes into the process that many people cannot put these documents together. Then you go to court, you see you have a watery case. The burden of proving that the election was credible should be with INEC. INEC has all the materials and everything that was in the election. It should be the one to come to court to be able to prove that this election was. That way, you will reduce the post-election cost. It's not how much do I even earn. I want to serve Nigeria in the capacity of running for election or serving my people. But I cannot afford it. Even if I can afford it to buy the nomination form or be at the ballot, what do I do after election? Knowing fully well that there will be primary, pre-election, and post-election litigations up and down. Who can afford it? It's not cheap. Our legal people are cashing out big time from this whole process. Most young people cannot afford it. Want to change?
Elections February, March, swearing in May. We are now in October.
And
more than 90% of the legislators are
in courts.
And you know, the report we had from Shepiu, you know, one of those who commented said politicians, they keep fighting to remain in power. What lessons should Nigerians actually learn from other countries as far as the desperation to retain power?
I've always said that the problem with Nigeria, with my politics in my country, is that we misconstrue governance for entrepreneurship. The easiest way to escape poverty in this country is to hold any political office, and you are good with public funds, which is very, very sad and pathetic. I think we need to actually restructure how that looks. Governance should not be that way. Governance should be more about service than about the financial gains. Another thing again is the sycophancy that comes with it. I was commuting home some time last week, early last week. I was at a conference, so we're commuting home, and Wike was passing. I live in Life Camp, so I think he was going to his quarters, the minister's lodge in Life Camp. And usually, if you know the way the Life Camp axis is, around that Kado roundabout, there's usually a traffic there between 4 to 7, those people commuting back from work. And we were seated in that traffic for at least 30 minutes, and you could hear a siren. In less than 10 minutes, he was out of that traffic. Now, I'm not saying that we should keep our government officials in traffic. That's not what I'm saying. But you could tell that the major reason why anybody even knew that he was even there in the first place was the truckload of security he had. That was on one hand. Secondly, the kind of sycophancy we build around government actors, state actors itself, is something that is really, really appalling, and that we need to really revisit. Because, and this is why when they don't want to leave office. I've been in state houses, several states, sub-state houses, and when I go in, even I am tempted. I can run for governor, because when you see the kind of things that these people enjoy, it is really, really, it is too much, honestly. And then when you build that kind of idea in somebody's head that they could live for that long, they could live that way, they never want to let go of it. So the idea that we cannot actually separate state-specific actors from governance. So, because if we agree that in every governance structure there are state-specific actors, then we can also not dehumanize them by not thinking that they will be greedy, by not thinking that they will always want more, or that they're going to be wicked people or good people eventually. They're going to have their own personal, individualistic interest. So how can we find a way to ensure that the ideology is tweaked such so that those people who actually have the interests of the country at heart predominantly actually ends up being one that wins of public offices? Because there's this popular saying by Alan Smith that it's sad that those who can actually run the country are busy cutting hair or driving cabs. So we need to ensure that those people who have good ideas have a say, and there's a way that the government actually also listens to them. So how can we ensure these things actually change eventually? I don't know how we're going to go about it as a country, but I think that's somewhere we can actually start from, so that way governance can be a bit better as we go forward.
I can see Emmanuel.
Just to add to what he said, so when you travel to other countries, the people in those countries are not better humans than Nigerians.
At all.
And they are not exactly more civil than Nigerians. So I'm a sociologist. In sociology, we talk about deviance and sanctions. The reason why we have the culture of anyhowness in Nigeria is because of that attitude of big manism, or people in power being above the law. So if we continue like that, you will continue to see the kind of rascality, executive rascality and rascality you see in people. We must get to a point where nobody should be above the law. Matter of fact, a lot of people are above the law in Nigeria. I don't know, I'm sure you know that. A lot of people, a lot of big men and people in power are above the law in Nigeria. Nothing happens. You take them to court, they will drag that case for 15 years. Meanwhile, some other persons who are the regular people, my thesis when I did my MSc on public policy analysis was around prison reforms. Okay. And I checked and I realized that over 85 to 90% of people languishing in prisons, their cases are still awaiting trial. So these people... So is the law meant for some people and for some other people? So we see a states like United States, for instance, not like they may project themselves to be like practicing
same law but standard. Application.
But then look at the former president is undergoing trial, even though he's running for office. And if you look at the polls shows that he's the most popular candidate running for presidential election.
And if
That's
it were
Donald
in
Trump.
Nigeria, maybe somebody will say it's because
politics,
the
because he's running
politician
for
believe
office.
that he's going to
He's running
win.
for office.
That is why
but
they are
he's going
hunting.
on that. So it means that nobody is above the law. Our Nigerian what's his name? Adesanya. What's his name again? The UFC champion. Was recently
Israel.
Israel Adesanya.
Israel, yes.
Adesanya. Israel.
I'm trying to remember his nickname. Yeah, the
Style bender.
the
Style bender.
Yeah.
Style bender.
I mean, he was recently. I mean, he's a millionaire in dollars. And he's a superstar. But he was just recently arrested last week for driving under influence of alcohol, and which is terrible. But in this country, me and you know that if he was in this country and he's even caught driving with a bottle of Hennessy, most likely the security personnel there will hail him.
And I'm tempted to
it.
ask this
We're
question,
asking for
maybe
it.
any of you can answer. The issue of youth mobilization. Are Nigerians youth adequately mobilized to know some of this nitty-gritty of ensuring good governance?
Honestly, at this point, this is where I'm actually going to throw a jab at my own people.
Okay.
I think for everything that has to do with knowledge, largely, there are twofold. There is the information availability and information access. So for you, I don't think the government is going to come to go to class or door to door to teach us governance and accountability and whatnot. But I also think, so that's why I actually think it's a personal responsibility. It's a matter of civic duty for you to learn what your law says, what your rights are, what you can or cannot do, what you should do in certain circumstances. I would remember there was a time I started a very mini series, which I think I should actually continue, which is the rights you never knew you had.
The right you never knew?
You never knew you had.
No, you have.
I did it very briefly earlier this year.
It's a book you wanted to...
No, it's just a series I was just posting online.
Okay.
I was just like, basically, so I realized that there were certain things that Nigerians did not know that were their rights. They never knew they had it. A typical example is, we have a right to plead the fifth. That's a common way of saying it because of United State law, where you have a right to refuse to give a testimony or any form of evidence that self-incriminates you. So you can easily just keep quiet about it. That's your right. So there are certain things that we don't know that we are actually...
But you know how some security agencies, operate?
Which is where... which is where...
I will come to that. Yes, when he lands, because I want to bring an example so that maybe you shed more light on that.
Which is where we talk about strong institutions, and then the idea of consequence management,
Sanctions, yeah.
So if for every action there should be consequences, whether it's a good consequence or a bad consequence. At the end of the day, if we do not reward efforts and sanction misbehavior, we're going to have total and utter anarchy and chaos. So actually, the government, there's a chicken and egg thing about this whole idea of law and obedience and all of that. There's this chicken and egg thing, because you get to see that in an average Nigerian, if you ask them, if they sort of get to the same position, they might end up behaving the same way.
Okay,
so
Emmanuel, come in
here
and let me have your take. Security agencies, they always say that you have your rights, you can also report. Last week, first spokesperson Muyiwa, he said bail is free. We debated this in the newsroom. That if you are not satisfied and anybody collected money from you to bail someone, you have right to report, or you ask for receipt. Yes, we're talking about mobilization of youth and Nigerians in general. Why are citizens scared to actually write petitions against erring law enforcement agents?
Mr. Hamza, have you ever had reasons for whatever reason to be in police station on a Friday,
oh Lord,
and it's approaching 3:34 and you're arguing that bail is free, knowing fully well that you sleep in that station till Monday? You'll be in that police station, you'll be detained.
We're not arguing, of course. Yes.
Till Monday, so they say these things, but so that's the thing about information. So the spokesman of police could have said that thing, but the police station somewhere in Zangon, Kataf, or the police station somewhere in my village in Imo State, and the people there, they are not even aware of these things you're talking about.
So mobilization,
information and mobilization. And just to a bit counter what you said, young people don't necessarily need to have all the information. in the last election, young people participated actively. We saw it. There was a whole lot of young people out there to participate.
They only shouted, you know, on social media.
No, they shouted,
when we go to the ballot, we didn't see them there.
They shouted. They made effort to pick up their PVCs, irrespective of the bureaucracies and the challenges that makes getting registered or having a PVC to even vote. It's so difficult. It's a process. They all also came out to vote. Our voter turnout in that last election was low for different reasons. One, we want to compare it to the last elections. We've never had a proper voter accreditation system that shows real data. This is the first time we had a proper voter accreditation system. So my point is, the young man who sells in a market, or the artisan in UTC, would not have the time to go and start studying your electoral act to understand the electoral laws. He knows the basic, that he has a civic duty to come out on election day.
Okay,
and
very sorry, I have to cut you
short. The institutions
to
do the needful too.
Yes, I will cut you short because they're about to cut the independence anniversary cake. Yes. At the presidential villa.
Okay.
Take a look.
Put your hands together, please. Put your hands together. Thank you. Thank you. Next will be the release of the birds of pigeon. Once again, we are accompanied by the dignitaries, peers, and birds of peace, harmony, mutual coexistence in a nation like ours, Nigeria. They fly hard to let the world know that Nigeria is in unfettered, absolute peace around the nation. Today's ceremony is very, very unique. Once again, I want to thank one and all for honoring this invitation. On behalf of the chairman of the Central Planning Committee, who doubles as the Secretary of Government of the Federation, His Excellency Senator George Akume, members of the Executive Committee.
Of course, congratulations, Nigerians. The president has, with other dignitaries, they have cut the anniversary cake, and he has just released the pages, sign of peace and tranquility, unity, prosperity in Nigeria. Congratulations, Nigerians, on this 63 independence anniversary. We hope this brings more peace, harmony, and fortunes, for our country.
Acting Assistant Public Relations Officer of the Nigerian National Guard, and just very affectionately, Major Paul Esapara, retired formerly Director of Public Relations. Thank you, God bless you, all you and all. Thank you.
And that wraps up the low-key independent anniversary at the presidential villa in Abuja. We are now back in the studio to continue with our conversation on youth participation in politics and good governance. I still have with me Emmanuel Ojoku. He's the Director, Democracy and Good Governance at Connected Development Court, and also have Mukhtar Suleiman, a communication strategist, accountability advocate, and also a writer. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes. The pigeons, some don't want to leave the aura of the presidency.
I think they are used to the aura of the State House now.
Okay.
You know, when you walk into the State House, you don't want to walk out.
I think there's most times, so we always keep saying this, and I think they use domestic dove to do these things. Okay. And they are used to being caged.
But don't you think that
they are not maybe to escape.
It is MLO, it is their turn also?
But when we are not a domestic people, when we are not a domestic people.
Exactly.
Anyway, I'm happy you have explained to Nigerians, because I remember, was it the 60th independence anniversary when the doves refused to go out of the cage, and then they said it was bad luck. This was during Buhari, but maybe I think they like the presidency.
When you keep these things caged for a long time, they become comfortable being caged. So there's no urgency to escape when you throw it open, because they are there, you've been feeding them. But where are they going to go and look for food? You've been feeding them for 1 week.
You agree with him, or you think this is the situation Nigeria is in? Nobody wants to go out of his cocoon.
Okay.
We've been caged for too long. The situation is so bad and all that.
People are living. People are immigrating every day.
I think we are in what do they call it these days? What do they call that syndrome? We're sort of having a Stockholm syndrome in recent times, where you know that you cannot leave. For those that cannot leave, you cannot leave, so you have no choice but to stay. But at the end of the day, that has never really tied Nigerians to any place.
But maybe the Japa is becoming so expensive. The
Japa is not for the poor. Japa is not for the poor.
No, it's not for the poor, but people are still fighting.
But people are living. So, but it's more troubling. I feel sad when I say this. My immediate senior brother, his name is Tobechi Njoku. He's literally the best O&G doctor I think I know, and most people know. I mean, he was the best of the best during our days in university and secondary school days. Sadly, he just left the country because
he has japped.
Yes, he just left to go and work in other places where he will be properly remunerated, where he will have security for his children. And so this is a big challenge that we're not even talking about. And the country is just moving on as if it's a problem. My wife is a medical officer. My wife is a nurse in one of the federal hospitals in Abuja here. All the people that were employed with her own batch as nurses when she started like 8 years ago or 12 years ago, all of them have all left. It's just new nurses. The doctors, most of them are very fresh doctors who come. In fact, this Japa thing is such a huge distraction that is affecting our businesses, our economy, our education, our medical, our hospitals. Because every doctor, most of the doctors rather you see, why they are there, they are not even concentrating, because it's just they are preparing to leave.
But why are we taking the blame to the executive and to the legislature? Of course, we will go to judiciary later. Why are we taking the blame to them instead of you and me also remaining here to say that let's sacrifice our own lives for the next generation?
Because government has a fundamental responsibility. We cannot exonerate the government from what they are supposed to do on their own part, which is to ensure that there is safety in the country for all of us to actually lead healthy and progressive lives. If you are in your house and say, let's take hypothetically, you live with your parents and everybody else, and your dad is not making your house conducive, you're itchy to leave, either to go to university, to run away, or to get married, to move into your own apartment, or whatever it is that you feel will give you succor, which is that situation we are finding ourselves in Nigeria. And the most painful part is that it looks like there's no end in sight. So now, this is not to say that Nigerians should not have the individual responsibility to actually stay and make their country work. But at the end of the day, it's a tit-for-tat thing. The country has to do its own part. So the question now is, who is the country? The country are those people that we vote into power, that in turn makes appointment for people who lead the MDAs. So if these people can actually work, because the sad truth,
they implement the policies of
government. The sad reality is that the same thing he said, the same thing. I have a similar story. One of my cousins is one of the best pediatric surgeons I know. He left in January. He left this country in January. I said he was tired and he wanted to just go to somewhere where he knows that he can get effective remuneration. He's living really well now. He's even coming back this month. He said he wants to come and spend 1 week and go back again. So the whole the thing is that the government needs to find a way to incentivize the citizens to actually remain in the country. Yes, we can argue and debate that education is cheap, the standard of the quality of education we're receiving is very cheap for how much we are paying, which is the truth and which is a fact. But the question, the problem is not getting the education. The problem is the sustainability of the knowledge I gain after the education. How does it ensure that I have a meaningful and progressive life as an average citizen of the world? Because now borders are blowing up now in this current dispensation. So if I'm earning in my country, can I also live comfortably somewhere else? I know people who are working remotely in Nigeria and working for other countries, and they are living because at the end of the day, all of it comes down to economic problems.
All right, thank you very much. And I think we have said so much on executive and legislature without dwelling on judiciary. And we just have to, also speak on that, because it is thought
arm of government.
Arm of government, yes. And in the spirit of the independence, we spoke to the former Chief Justice of Adamawa State, Bemari Bansi, and let's see what he said. Yes.
Judiciary is doing its best. I'm a retired judicial officer. I passed through many governors and many heads of states. We worked together. They were working hard.
You are the longest serving.
Yes. Well, I served as a chief judge 20 years. I'm one of the longest serving chief judges in the country. And I serve my country very dearly. That is why I have the guts of saying this country belongs to us. Anyone who is a leader of Nigeria, if he is not ruling properly, he should quit, because the country belongs to us. It doesn't belong to leaders who steal money. It doesn't belong to leaders. The wealth of Nigeria should be given to Nigerians. Judiciary was doing fine, and judiciary is still doing fine. Because if you take judiciary out of Nigeria, then you will not have Nigeria. I'm telling you. Unfortunately, politicians have ruined this country. Not judicial officers, not judiciary. Judiciary is the one sustaining the existence of Nigeria. If judicial officers are as corrupt as politicians, Nigeria should have ceased to exist. Military should have come back. But judiciary is doing fine. Judiciary, you sit as an umpire. They bring evidence before you. They testify, and they testify on oath. If you are a Muslim, you hold the Holy Quran. If you are a Christian, you hold the Holy Bible. You testify, and the judge listens. Lawyers cross-examine the cases. Judgment is based purely on the evidence before it. Once the judgment is based on the evidence before the court is functus officio. The court has performed its function. But if the judgment is based outside the evidence that was not before the court, then the judgment is wrong. But in many cases, our judges or justices, to base their decision on the evidence before them. So the decision of the court in Nigeria, even in recent cases, recent judgment, is in accordance with the principles of law. Anyone that is not satisfied, then you have the option of appealing against that decision. And this is the best judicial system we have. This is the best judicial system British bequeathed to us, and we are respecting and holding it. And anyone who is not satisfied with the judgment, don't abuse the judges, don't abuse the lawyers, don't abuse anyone. If you are not satisfied with the judgment, you go upstairs, you appeal against the decision, until when you reach Supreme Court. If you reach Supreme Court, the decision of Supreme Court is final. Yeah.
That was Justice Bemari Bansi, the former Chief Justice of Adamawa State. Yes, Emmanuel, you heard him. One of the longest justices in Nigeria. He said he has seen quite a number of presidents, and no president has the right to remain in power if he cannot deliver
justice,
what he promised to Nigerians. That looks like a soundbite.
Yeah, but that's morality that no president has. I mean, it's morality, but who know that in our climb here, morality is not a thing that people in power take seriously. So even the worst performing people still stay in office, even when they don't deliver nada to the citizens.
And maybe he's referring to even the African continent.
Yes, African
Look at what is happening in others.
Yes. So but when we look at the judiciary, yeah, they are doing their bit. But like I said earlier, you know, the justice somehow becomes sour when something, a judgment that can come in 6 months or in 3 months stays forever, 10, 15, 20 years. The appeal court, there was this event that I saw one of the appeal court judges, or the
president of the court of appeal.
I was talking about how many cases,
thousands of
39,000 and something cases that they still have that at the level of the appeal court, same in Supreme Court, same in the stages. So when a simple case that should be decided in 6 months stays for 10 years, 15 years, you are delaying justice, and that enables people to continue to, you know, commit crime and, you know, do what they keep doing, knowing that even if you take me to court, they will find technical ways to delay justice forever. Sometimes, I know there was a Supreme Court case that lasted for 20-something years. By the time judgment was given, one of the people in the party had got, what, the first person is old and dead, the second person was so old. I mean, so to what end? So, and all these things comes down to the burden that we also put in our judiciary with these election issues. Because these election matters have timelines, I think they've created these timelines that they must suspend every other thing and suspend justice. When the judiciary focuses on just electoral issues, they've suspended justice across the country.
Criminal issues,
all sorts of
property
issues for them to, and by the time they finish and get back to these cases, in less than 2-3 years, primaries have started again, cases are back to the courts again. So I think the judiciary is overburdened, so which is why we think in this reform of electoral act, we have to find a way to reduce the burden of election petitions on our judiciary. And then the judiciary also, for me, is also handicapped in the states. Because, you know, in the state, the governors are the alpha and omegas of the states. The governors have influence over the director of DSS in the states. The governors have influence over the commissioner of police in the states. The governors have influence over who becomes the chief judge or chief justice of the state. The governor decides who gets posted.
Even though with input from National Judicial Council.
So for this reason, you know, they become also handicapped to actually give judgment without fear or favor. So which is why the job we do and the job of activism, we tend to be more careful when our colleagues that operate at the state level tend to be more careful, because you can disappear, or they can bring up trumped up charges on you and you go to jail for something you didn't even commit. So these are the challenges of the judiciary, but we will continue to trust and believe in the judiciary, just like the police. In as much as we complain about the police, I always say this: just imagine a Nigeria without police. Just imagine a Nigerian police shuts down office and go on strike for 1 week. You will be shocked that the person closest to you, who you think is a good guy, is a criminal. So we need the Nigerian police, just like we also need the judiciary, and we'll continue to hope and continue to engage to ensure that we'll put up policies that will sharpen justice delivery in Nigeria.
Justice Bemari, Bansi said, without judiciary, there wouldn't have been democracy in Nigeria. You agree with him?
Oh, yes, I do. I think the fundamentals upon which any democracy is built is in the strength of its judiciary to ensure that there is clinical dispensation of justice for everybody who is a member of such community. But then at the end of the day, I have an unpopular opinion about what the judiciary is actually really set up to do. I don't believe that the judicial system is set up to give justice, to hand out justice, really, because I feel justice is predominantly domiciled around your feeling. So how do you measure justice at the end of the day? Because if you both take a case to court and the ruling is in my favor, you feel like you didn't get justice. If the ruling is in
and you
favor,
run to
you go to higher, you feel like so I believe that every case at the job of the judicial arm of government is to pass on judgments based on the facts.
And he said it. He said judgments are based on evidence. So Nigerians should stop blaming justices for deciding cases based on evidence at their disposal.
You see, the irony, the funny part, the irony about the entire judicial system is that there are some things that are absurd, but it's legal. It's the law. Very absurd things. If you go through our Nigerian constitution itself, you go through the Evidence Act, you go through the Land Use Act, there are so many absurd aberrations that are there, but it is the law. So if you want to channel your anger properly and effectively, don't channel it toward the judge sitting at the chambers. Find the creative way to channel it toward what the law says and how that law can be amended to fit into a proper 21st century
Meaning both the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary must work in synergy.
Yes, that's what we're taught in social studies, of course, back in the days.
But Emmanuel, are you worried that Nigeria's democracy is being decided in the court?
It's very disturbing, very, very disturbing. As an election person, it's sad that citizens will go to the polls, do their own bits, and only for them to go back home and wait. Everybody is waiting on the judiciary. Everybody. The political parties, the citizens, the voters, so INEC, even INEC themselves are also, because INEC will only take the court orders and just judgments from the judiciary. So why spend so much? Why commit so much? It's sad. And we have to change that. We have to, going forward, we can't continue like that. And this is some of the reasons, this is one of the things that cause voter apathy. Because why come out and spend the whole day to vote, only for you to wait for the next 6 months? I guess the total process takes about 280 days for the Supreme Court or the Appeal Court, depending on the case, to finally decide who wins the election. It just doesn't make sense. And the worst part of it all is that the technicalities that they're bringing in this. So it's not just about the facts, but it's about, they talk about the Evidence Act. How did you present, your evidence? How did you? So it's not even about our parts. The role we played.
So the ingenuity of your lawyers?
Yes, ingenuity. But what makes it worse is that in all of these things, I don't know if INEC takes responsibility in all of these things. Because it looks like INEC just do their own bit, we'll do our own bit, and everybody goes back. So okay, let the court decide.
But INEC has been praying to have election.
That one is offenses. That one is for offenders.
Yes, offenders commission or court.
That one is for offenders. It's a different thing. But as regards, if the election,
but most likely the issue of even deciding some of this will go to that court.
This is the same reason we say we have to go back to that Justice Owais committee report on electoral reforms. Because the burden of proof has to be on INEC. You conducted this election. No? You can't go back and sit back and let the people that conducted the election in petitioning themselves and trying to prove the election was credible or not. You conducted the election. The burden of proof should be on you to come and, because you are the one that created the guideline and there's an electoral act that you follow, you must be the one to provide all the evidence from the primaries. So it's sad that after election, all of them are not sure. But the governors, like you said, about 90% of the people in parliament are not sure. So why did we even go? It's very disturbing and is a reason for voter apathy.
But Mukhtar, don't you pity INEC? I don't think if there is any of those cases instituted at the tribunals that
they are not
INEC
represented,
has not been joined.
I think it's the responsibility of what the office calls. See, the sanctity of our democracy rests heavily on how well our electoral processes are, because that's what gives legitimacy to whatever the government of the day is. So I am sorry, I will not say I pity you, because you asked for the job. You wanted to be INEC chairman, you wanted to work
I'm referring to the institution, not the INEC chairman.
No, what I'm trying to do now is, well, what I've been trying to do for the past few months is, I try not to exonerate the actors that are partaking in that particular institution, because the institution does not exist in an abstract. There are people who are the mechanisms that ensures that this institution are actually functioning. So you want to work there, then you should serve to that ultimate price. So there's nothing really to pity about it, because honestly, genuinely, I would be very honest, I've never seen it from this perspective, where the burden of proof for the election should actually be on INEC, because you set the guidelines, you were the one that set up the systems and the structures. The BVAS, nobody had access to it until INEC said it was open to the public. Until we saw it when they used it in Osun State, when they used it in Ekiti State during the off-cycle election last year. So it was really, really painful and disheartening. I remember because we were both at the same situation room during the elections, and we were all patiently waiting for the results to be uploaded to I remember a friend of mine called me and said, these results will not be uploaded. I said, nah, it's a lie. There's nothing. We've done meetings with Mahmoud. There's no way this result will come out. And then all of a sudden there was a fault from where we did not even understand. Then when it was time to actually examine the BVAS, you wiped the metadata that you want to use it for gubernatorial elections. So there's a lot of, we are excusing too much responsibility from INEC. If the burden of proof was on INEC, INEC by now would have done better. INEC would have done that transmission of results to exonerate itself from whatever form of litigious litigation, thank you, that might actually ensue post-elections.
Okay, there is this famous or infamous hashtag, all eyes on judiciary. But who speaks for the judiciary? We are lucky Justice Bemare Bansi has retired. Assuming he's still in service, he wouldn't have, voiced out the difficulty justices are passing through. Who speaks for INEC, and how can we make judiciary, yes. Who speaks for judiciary? So that we now, protect its integrity, because they are really on trial.
Yeah, for the election, election is one event or an activity that concerns every Nigerian. Now, when election finishes and it moves to the court, typically, all eyes should be on the judiciary. That's what we said here earlier now. After election, even the INEC, their eyes are on the judiciary.
Then what happens to the contempt law?
Everybody's eyes on the judiciary. But then again, like we said earlier, and like the retired justice from Adamawa State said, the judiciary, with their learning and their training and ethics and professionalism, are not moved by public opinion, by emotionalism, by sentimentalism.
Only facts and what can be
only facts and evidence presented in court. And that is why that lady justice eye is the symbol of justice. The lady eye is tied with the sword. I mean, so you can be looking at the judiciary is not looking at you. Judiciary will only look at the evidence presented to it. So, and that's why I say judiciary cannot be intimidated. Because these are judges and justices who have sentenced people to life imprisonment, who have given death sentences to criminals, who still have gang members outside the society. So if they are going to be concerned about, what's this word for it again? I mean, people attacking them and all of that. I mean, they will even be more bothered about sentencing criminals who have members still out there that may come attack.
Because they are reducing the...
Yes, so for me, and the way I understand it, I don't think they should be bothered. Citizens have the rights. And, the whole process has made it so that all eyes should typically be on the judiciary. But all eyes being on them, I believe this is the reason why they gave that judgment for 12 hours that day. Because they understood that, okay, yeah, all eyes are actually on us. But these things normally we decide it within the hollow chambers of the court. But let's televise it live and did you watch it? It was long and torturous and boring at some point. I even slept. People say people were sleeping in the court. Me, that was in my house. I slept up for 1 hour and woke up and continued. So they had to put it out line by line, details by details, so that the judgment will not be shrouded in secrecy that will bring in controversies and all of that. So they put it out there. And I think for me, they've done their bit. We'll wait for what the appeal court and the Supreme Court judgments will also be.
All right, thank you very much. We will take a short break and to catch our breath, of course. Yes, viewers will now have a narration on how Abuja became the Federal Capital Territory.
With population growth, Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, became too crowded. The political class began agitating for an administrative capital in a centralized location closer to the regions. The military government of General Murtala Muhammad made the decision to move the capital from Lagos to Abuja in 1976. There were several reasons for this.
Lagos was not only congested, it was also difficult to expand the city. Abuja, on the other hand, was somewhat a virgin territory compared to Lagos. The city could be planned for easy accessibility. Abuja's favorite climate and low population density was also a plus. Located in the north-central region, about 700 kilometers northeast of Lagos, it was designed to be a modern cosmopolitan capital. Construction began in 1976, and the city was officially inaugurated as the new capital of Nigeria in 1991. Today, Abuja is a thriving city with a population of over 3 million people. It is home to the federal government of Nigeria, as well as many businesses, international organizations, and embassies.
Welcome back. Once again, happy 63 Independence Anniversary. What you watched was a narration on how the Federal Capital Territory came, and then a rundown of our Nigeria's leaders. Congratulations to all of us. Back to the studio, I still have, of course, Emmanuel Ujoku and Mukhtar Suleiman. We discuss on judiciary, executive, legislature, now youth's participation. Once again, I want to have your final thoughts before we round up the program. What should our youth do with the power at their disposal? We have quite a number of them in the National Assembly. We have young governors now. We have ministers. what should they do with their power?
I think I would largely speak to those that are not even in government yet. We are the decision makers for whosoever it is that will lead us. However disappointing the 2020 general elections turned out, it does not necessarily mean that we don't go again in 2027. Things we've faced more tortuous circumstances than this in this country. Even in our day-to-day life, from our economic hardship to the state of our social well-being, it is difficult for us every single day. And then we wake up every day, we still dust up and we still go. So no matter however disappointed you are of how the 2020 general elections go, it is not a sprint, it is a marathon. And we have to keep going at it head first, because this country is ours. If you travel out of this country and you go see how international laws actually find a way to clamp down on foreigners in other countries, you get to understand that there's no any other place like home. So at the end of the day, no matter where we go, north or south, wherever it is we travel to, somehow we are most comfortable here, where we know that this is where we were born, this is where we have the most rights. So we actually have to see how we can actually participate more. Then for those who have actually been in government, I think they need to give us
the ministers.
Yes, they need to give us
the governors.
They need to give
the
us,
legislators
exactly,
at the national and the state level.
Yes, they need to give us something to aspire to. It is very, very important, because however it is that they turn out, what they're doing now would set the precedent for whether or not we want to trust youth of our peers to continue in these governance systems and structures, because the arguments against us a lot that we're not prepared to take over the entire system, and I think that's a lie. But then again, if you've been given that responsibility, hopefully you do well with that responsibility you've been given, because it's a trust, and we hope that they do well. We wish them well, and I hope they do.
All right, Emma, your concluding thought?
Well, I will say that
how they should utilize the power.
First of all, this administration so far, I think they have encouraged youth participation in appointments. I know there is a young man, Lawrence Gariki, who was just appointed under Wike's
mandate
secretaries. Lawrence Gariki, I understand, is just 32 years old, and he's been given such a huge opportunity to serve in government. But one thing we'll first tell people, our young people who are in office, is that they must ensure that arrogance of being in office, that they don't do it. They must see themselves as public servants, as servants of the people. In fact, they should see us as more important than them that are in the office, because they are there to serve us.
There is a saying that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts.
So you know, and the challenge has always been young people, give them power because of maybe things that have happened in the past. We'll see a lot of they just misuse power. So we are hoping that these people in power, they are now an opportunity to shape Nigeria. They are now in the forefront to now implement those policies, to do all the talking. This Minister of,
Humanitarian Affairs?
Digital economy.
And
so, I mean,
Tijani.
He's been tweeting like some of us, which is one of the issues he had during the screening.
Yes.
He's been tweeting, these morons, these people in office. Now he's in the office, and he needs to do the needful. All those things we complain about.
It's time to refine.
It's now time to do your own bit to serve Nigeria. Now, but for the majority of the young people who are not in office, who I believe they are more powerful than the ones in the office. Because...
How?
Yes, they are more powerful. They elected the people that are in the office. They gave them the power.
We the people.
Yes, they gave them the power. Like I said, in some states, there are first-timers who are speakers of the state assembly, simply because most of the people there were lost the election. They lost the election, so new people came in. So they don't have ranking state parliamentarians that will become speaker. They just have to give speakership to first-timers. This is because young people voted, and with the help of the accreditation that INEC introduced, and especially with that transition of votes, a lot of people were sacked. The young people that voted, this is also for them to be encouraged that in the last election, the total number of former governors and sitting governors that ran for office to become senators were about 28. Only 11 of them won the election. Sitting governors lost election. Benue State Governor, who was a sitting governor, lost election into the Senate. The Abia State Governor lost election into the Senate. The Enugu State Governor, the Plateau State Governor. So Taraba. So these things, we've never seen it before. Typically, a sitting governor strolls into the Senate. It's more like his own Emiloko, it's his turn, and it happens. So young people voted. And with the deployment of the technology that made electoral accreditation possible and the transmission of results, which we are going to engage INEC squarely. to further make it possible. And another thing I want to encourage young people, you may be thinking finally that to get your PVC is difficult. There is already a conversation going on to reduce these whole bureaucracies, because we've said it before. With the beavers, you don't really necessarily need the PVC. So PVC should be paper printed, which if you lose it, you can go and reprint it over and over. It makes it now possible for you to. So let's not lose hope in what happened in the presidential election result transmission.
And we should believe
instead,
in the
let's stay committed in love and patriotism to Nigeria and wait again. And 2027, we'll go again.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel Njoku, Director, Democracy and Governance at Connected Development.
Thank you very much
for the program, and happy Independence Anniversary.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Mukhtar Suleiman, Communication Strategist, Accountability Advocate, and a writer. We thank you very much for coming to the program.
Thank you very much.
Happy Independence Anniversary. We hope to see next and next and next Independence celebration.
Amen.
Thank you for coming to the program.
Thank you very much, Hamza.
And viewers, after the break, I will be speaking to one of the youngest lawmakers in the National Assembly to also get his thoughts on politics and youth inclusion. Stay with us. We are now joined by Honorable Bashir Usman Goro from Sokoto State. He represents Gada Goronyo Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives. He is also the House Deputy Chairman, Committee on Disaster and Emergency Preparedness. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Malam Hamza. It's my pleasure to be here.
And happy Independence Anniversary.
The same to you. Happy Independence Anniversary.
Of course, the Honorable Member joins us to discuss youth participation in politics. He's among the youngest members in the Parliament. Yes, 63 years down the line. What is your take on Nigeria's trajectory, especially as far as youth participation in politics is concerned?
Well, thank you very much. When we are talking about youth inclusion in politics, generally looking to Nigerian democracy, Nigerian democracy, just upcoming democracy, we didn't spend up to 30 years in democratic system of government.
So it's now 24 years, yeah, from 1999.
It's 24 years, yes. So the process is a gradual process, and Nigerian as a country, we are gradually understanding the system of democracy, and we are upholding to it. And coming to the youth inclusion is something that is really difficult, even at the developing countries. It's something that the young people must necessarily struggle to see themselves in the position of power, more especially the elective position. When it comes to the appointment, many countries, developing and developed nations, are giving young people appointment in different capacity and at different capacity. But when it comes to elective position, it's a seriously struggle for young people to position themselves in the elective position.
How tough was it for you to get to the House of Representatives?
Well, speaking generally, having understanding the system and the process entirely, and with the vast experience that we have across the African countries, I can tell you the democratic process, or rather political system in Nigeria, is very tough. It's really capital intensive. So for young people, all of us, we have people that have capacity, people that have, capability, people that have all what it takes to be in the position of leadership. But unfortunately for us, our population, the majority of our population, we are drawing back when it comes to capital intensive. And politics in Nigeria is really capital intensive.
Meaning it requires money and energy.
A lot of money.
So you had the money maybe because you serve as commissioner in Sokoto State?
In some cases, in Nigeria, more especially, we witnessed a very good, remarkable achievement in the just 2023 election that brought on board a lot of young people. Some, they don't even have money. Some, it's just a determination of electoral to elect them in different certain positions, ranging from the State House of Assemblies to the National Assembly, House of Representatives, even into and even to the Senate. So we have witnessed a very positive changes in the democratic system of Nigeria, where so many young people come on board with or without money. Some cases are very rare in this situation, but the majority been capital intensive definition.
Meaning they found their way, they bought their way to get to the elected position.
And they got into the elected
You defeated a four-time member in the House of Representatives to get to where you are. How top is it? And is it the end of the game? Because we had that, is it more than 90% of senators are facing litigation in courts? What is the situation in the House of Representatives?
Well, it's actually true. More than 90% of the national lawmakers comprising both the upper and the lower chamber are absolutely in court battling with the tribunal and some at the Court of Appeal. Because some tribunal judges have passed judgment, some final have passed judgment, and members have rushed to appeal court, while some are still at the tribunal looking for judgment before moving to appeal court. And that action of Nigerian political system, from electoral, INEC declaration to tribunal to appeal court, is what all in bulk put a capital intensivity.
It tells a lot on your resources.
Resources requiring for you to go into the pre-election matters, election profile, reserve your energy for tribunal, reserve your energy for Court of Appeal, and eventually settle down and start, looking forward how you are going to give back the dividends of democracy, projecting a positive law for the nation, and all of that. But for my own case that you have questioned, let me answer that question, that how I get way to defeated the fourth times member in the then House of Representatives, starting from the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Yeah, he went there in 2007.
Absolutely, it is not me, and it's not about resources mobilization. It's the determination of my constituent that they have determined to elect me in this position. It is not about money. If it is about money, I couldn't have defeated him. He has a lot of money and he's a billionaire. So me that are coming into the system was nothing but the determination of the electoral determined to vote for me into this position, and so it is here. I'm a member representative.
But you served as special advisor to former Sokoto State Governor. You served as also commissioner for youths. All this before the age of 35, if I am right.
Yeah.
Meaning you also mobilize resources, or you told your constituents that it is time for youths to also have a say, and that paved the way for you to win.
Well, you can go for investigation. I served as commissioner and I served as special advisor 2 times, all in Sokoto State government during Right Honorable Aminu Waziri Tambol administration. And Alhamdulillah, I served successfully. But I can tell you, I'm still living in government quarters.
Up till now?
Yeah, so material gain or accumulation has never been my objectives or my first point of priority.
So what is the future for youths in Nigeria? Because there is this fear that unless you are born with a golden spoon, it's very unlikely for you to crack that wall to get into the elite cycle.
Yes, we can absolutely do it. The only thing is that even in our own population, that is the population of young people, we have a problem, because within ourselves, we are not supportive. You can see a young person contesting for a particular position in a certain constituency, but his fellow young people are not ready to support him. They are not ready to believe with his own objectives. They are not ready to believe with his own idea, no matter how capable, how capacity he built. So that is one problem among ourselves, the young people. And in another case, you see, the already established class of a particular state or a particular society. They have a choice of who they want to place in a particular position, who they want to give chance to contest in a particular, position, state assembly, house of rep, governor, or any other position that is elective in Nigeria. So there is that prepositioning that the established society in Nigeria, they have their own choice that Mustawani or son of this person or son of the other person are the people that we are going to project in a certain position. Not on a common individual from a common family like me. So, so long we are not going, we the young people are not going to look at ourselves and see, Malam Hamza has the capacity and he can actually represent all of us in a certain position. Another person has the capacity and he can deliver and he can actually represent all of us in a certain position. That is where we can gang off and crack the wall and find our way out of all the incapability of resources, inadequacy of connection, and all of that.
Now, some of you have found your way to the National Assembly, unlike what obtained in the 9th, 8th, 7th assemblies. You have the numbers now. What are you doing to see that millions of youths that are roaming the streets have no hope, despite the fact that many of them have succeeded in going to school, to also have a sense of belonging in the Nigerian project?
Well, you see, as a national lawmakers, we have a limitation of what we can do. Our own, we can only make favorable laws that will target the employment of young people, providing employment opportunity for the young people, and of course, create an enabling environment for those of us that wanted to go into business, industries. Those that want to create small and medium scale enterprises, they can go and do so on an enabling environment. So that for us as a national lawmakers, that's only what we can do to target the direct credit disbursement to young people that can actually want to go for business, and of course those that have graduated from university and wanted to go into civil service career. We find the ways that government should mobilize as much as they can to make sure that the young people are actually employed in different parastatal and ministry, even though the space and the vacancies are not too good enough to consume all of them and all of the population.
Yes, are you worried of this JAPA syndrome, where young and agile people like you and me, because of course they want to remain at home, but because there is no hope, they always find their way out of the country. Are you worried, and are you thinking as a young lawmaker to have a law, a bill that will facilitate maybe the turning around of this problem?
Well, I'm very worried, very, very much worried, because at this point now, if you take a tour in our own teaching hospital across the country, irrespective of the state you happen to visit, either Sokoto, Katsina, Enugu, or Lagos, anywhere you visit our teaching hospital now, the population of doctors now are gradually decreasing, because everybody are fighting from Nigeria, moving to one country or the other.
Even in the banking sector.
Even in the banking sector, and of course engineering department. So they are moving, they are packing and leaving Nigeria, searching for a white collar job at the countries abroad. So the point of concern here is that there is a position of constitution that gives Nigeria and Nigerians freedom of movement. You can move anywhere you want, irrespective of what you are going to do. Whether you are going for job, whether you are going for business, whether you are going for personal engagement, you have a freedom to do that. So under that section of constitution that gives Nigerians freedom to move, is what is threatening Nigerian that living country going abroad for work.
You think the problem is in the poor condition of
the poor condition, of course, and the living wage, the poor condition of our working facilities and the living wage. So the problem is that we are not ready to increase the maximum wage, that living wage, that our workers can actually work comfortably. A doctor can feel okay and satisfied to work in Nigeria. A doctor or an engineer can feel okay and satisfied to work in Nigeria because his living wage is adequate enough to take care of his daily need, to take care of his children's school fees, to take care of his saving. Because no one can live without saving. So the living wage in Nigeria is not, the truth of the matter, the living wage is not as adequate as it is for a doctor to work and to, comfortably feed his family.
So you have,
so as a nation,
nearly 4 years now.
We have to look to the situation of improving our living wage so that our doctors, our engineers, our professional bodies can actually feel comfort, much more comfortable than even the politician.
Then what about those who do not have the opportunity to go to school? Of course, maybe some finish just primary school or secondary school and they are not privileged to go to school. What are you people thinking, because as lawmakers, to also give them a sense of belonging, maybe through farming, maybe through SME, as you mentioned earlier?
You are raising a very good point. You see, for my own constituency, a very good example. The population of my constituency, 90% of us are farmers. So whether government have provided job for graduate for a million and millions and millions of slots, we are only going to benefit with little out of it. But where government can actually impact positively for us is the empowerment on agricultural empowerment, SME disbursement, and so forth and so on. So there is need of diversification. Whether we like it or not, we don't have the capacity to absorb all the numbers of graduates in the situation where there is more than 5 million numbers of graduates roaming on the street looking for a job. Then where are the capacity and the agencies and the ministries that Nigerian as a government are going to accommodate all the numbers of graduates? Then we should diversify and think where we can send a large number of graduates to SMEs, small and medium scale enterprises, some to farming, some to building, others to many creation in the country, for them to have a living, a living finding.
All right, Honorable, thank you very much, but I'm tempted to say you just give a word on these, ethnic champions who are all out to divide Nigeria, a word or two for them.
Well, Nigerian as a nation, apart from being patriotic, we also always think to stay united and to see ourselves, irrespective of the region or religions we belong. Whether you are from the north, whether you are from the south, whether you are Christian, whether you are Muslim, as far as you are a Nigerian, we are Nigerians and we are one. Our unity is our strength.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, viewers, we've been discussing with Honorable Bashir Usman Goro, who represents Gada Goronyo, Federal Constituency of Sokoto State, on the platform of PDP. He is also the Deputy House Committee Chair on Disaster and Emergency Preparedness. We discuss independence at 63. Thank you very much for your informed perspective. And
thank you too for the opportunity to share my view. Thank you.
All right. That's the end of the conversation. Hope you enjoyed it. Happy anniversary once again. Bye-bye for now. I'm Hamza Idris.